Bill 88 passed third reading on Thursday, but not without opposition from the NDP.
No.
And a number of Indigenous organizations who traveled to the legislature in Regina. The government made amendments that say the Act will not lessen existing treaty rights as defined in the Constitution, but Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations Chief Bobby Cameron says this isn't good enough.
We have treaty experts, we have elders, knowledge keepers, chiefs, counselors, grassroots people that have all reached out to us and stated the same thing. The Saskatchewan First Act impacts our inherent and treaty rights. How can this government begin to understand or think they know more or know better of what First Nations are talking about when it comes to treaty? They don't.
The Métis Nation of Saskatchewan is also against the legislation. Vice President Michelle Leclerc says claims by the government that it consulted with Indigenous groups before passing the bill are simply untrue.
Number one, we weren't consulted. Number two, there was an introduction into the House that First Nations and Métis be able to speak to committee about the constitutionality of the Act. That was denied by committee and denied by the Saskatchewan government. So there's a lot of problems with respect to the Saskatchewan First Act. And the number one problem is the consultation.
Cameron says the FSN will use every means possible to prevent the government from utilizing Bill 88.
So now we're on this course to take legal action. We have many First Nations who are coordinating. Obviously, we're going to exhaust every avenue politically, legally, technically. And in the end, when our First Nations are ready to put up blockades to protect our lands and waters and our resources, then we're going to do so.
And Leclerc says the MNS is also exploring legal options to challenge the legislation.
We see it as unconstitutional with respect to Section 25 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, with respect to Section 35 of the Constitution Act.
Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.